Well, welcome to yet another marine evening for 2026. My name is Kari. You've heard about me. I've been away. I'm back. I've got a kid. It's amazing. Thanks for being here. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce to you my colleague, Amy Weber. She is a specialist in shark ecology and conservation, and she has a master's degree in tropical marine biology. Tonight, she is presenting on her work together with Dr. Ralph Watson from the University of Cape Town on photo identification as a non-invasive technique to recognize our local short-tailed stingrays. So please give a hand for Amy Weber.
Thank you. But hi guys, I'm Amy. I don't have a kid, but I am going to tell you guys a little bit about our short-tailed stingray population. So this is something I'm very excited to share with you guys. Tends to be an overlooked species as well. Of course, Kleinbaai associations are with sharks, with whales. So I'm going to give you a little bit of an introduction as to the research we've done and also what we've learned from this as well, and introduce you to some of our locals now. Bringing it to the next slide. No. Please stay away. There we go. Thank you, Leon. So guys, just again, introduction, who was involved when it comes to this specific piece of work. So of course myself, I'm part of the marine biology team here at Marine Dynamics. So all of our work when it comes to Reach Third Side is done through our Dyer Island Conservation Trust. And this was done in collaboration with Dr. Ralph Watson. So he is an alumni biologist, used to work here with us at Marine Dynamics, but now he is a postdoctorate fellow over at UCT. But of course, between us two, we have a deep appreciation for our sharks and our rays. So getting into this, we had a little bit of a split teamwork to get through onto our different sections as well. So as mentioned, Kleinbaai, our main association is of course our shark cage diving. So when it comes to going out on Slashfin, that is the expected sighting when you head out onto the water. So typically our bronze whaler sharks will be our day-to-day sightings, but there of course is more than this. So even just the sharks themselves, we have over 30 different species supported here in our waters, and those go from the smallest cat sharks and shy sharks all the way up to our apex predators as well. But heading out, there may be an unexpected visitor too, and that is of course our short-tailed stingray. So with regards to our short-tailed stingrays, they are basically cousins of our sharks too, so very, very closely related. They do belong to a class called the elasmobranchs. This is one of the oldest surviving classes that we do have here on our planet. So they've been here since before trees, before dinosaurs, before Mount Everest. They've gone through 5 mass extinctions. So in terms of this, very, very resilient animals, and also the perfect predators as well as a result of this. When it comes to these individuals here within our bay, they typically will have a distribution that is more related to the southern hemisphere. But when it comes to size, whatever you're picturing, just picture bigger, okay? So they can reach 4.3 meters at their full size, and their disc width will be 2.1 meters. So they can actually be larger than the sharks that we do have coming around our cages. You can imagine being in the water, you've got this massive shadow approaching you. They are just fantastic, super graceful here within our waters as well. When it comes to their reproduction though, they do have what we call a viviparous live birth. So you will have these little baby stingrays that do come out from the mother. They will come into nursery habitats, and based on her size and maturation, she can have quite a range in terms of her pup size. So pups are just what we call those little baby stingrays as well. So it is fantastic to have them here with us. But then just going a little bit deeper into their distribution. So they do have what we call an anti-tropical distribution. So we will have some within the northern hemisphere, some within the southern hemisphere, But around that equator section, you're not really going to be finding them. They do prefer a little bit of a cooler, more temperate environment as well. But your main aggregations are going to be around Australia and New Zealand, a few around Japan and also East Russia as well, and then naturally here across our South African coastline too. But where we'll be finding them will be a demersal to an epipelagic environment. So that means majority of the time they will be spending along the bottom of the seafloor. So you can imagine their shape. They are pretty flat across the front of their noses. They do have these jelly-filled pores, and the fancy name for that is the ampullae of Lorenzini. It picks up any electromagnetic signal within the water. So if you're scuffling around the seafloor, under the sand, all these little organisms are hiding, they are able to detect that out. So it'll mainly be small invertebrates as well as smaller fish species, and their mouths are perfectly designed to this. So they don't have the traditional teeth that we'll think of when it comes to sharks. Instead, it's these hardened plates that really allow them to crush through any of those hardened organisms and be able to access them and get their nice little snack from their environment. But when it comes to our specific individuals here within South Africa, but also on a global scale, there is a fair bit that we don't know, okay? They are a little bit of a mystery. When it comes to the IUCN Red List rating, which is a conservation rating, the global score is least concern, which is fantastic news, okay? It means they do have a stable population. It is going up on the incline. There's not too much in terms of their reduction. But naturally, as with many of our other marine organisms, there will be a host of different issues that they are facing, and majority of those are anthropogenic, meaning they do come from us, okay? So when it comes to a lot of the non-selective fishing pressures, your longliners, your seine nets, trawlers, it's not just your target species that are being brought up, especially if you can imagine those trawlers dragging along the bottom of the seafloor. That's their main residence. So there is a high chance of them being swept up within this. But unfortunately, still at the moment, when it comes to the reporting of this bycatch, especially on commercial vessels, it's still swept under the rug a little bit. So knowing those full values and those full numbers is unknown at the moment, but it is an identified threat to these individuals. And then a few other things that we may not know, but we are hoping to find out. When it comes to their population composition, where are they, and also how are the girls and guys mixing? We don't know this. So there have been identifications of different aggregations based with males predominantly as well as females separately. Want to see what's happening in our South African population as well. On top of this, the movement behavior. How long are they spending in a region? How far will they travel up the coastline to? This is information we aren't 100% certain on at the moment. And then on top of this, their gestation length. How long are they pregnant for? We know they have a live birth. We know they give birth to multiple different individuals. How long does it take for them to develop? It's uncertain, and also quite important to understand as well, just to evaluate their reproductive success. When it comes to their generation length, how long they live for, this is an unidentified factor. There is a close relation, which is the brown stingray. They live up to be 21 and a half years, but for these stingrays, we're still not 100% certain. So I'm going to go through our different research methods as to how we can identify these factors as well. But when it comes to the research aims of this, so what I am talking through is going to be put forward for publication, okay? So this is something that we do want out in the journals as a recognized piece of peer-reviewed literature. So we had aims that were twofold. Our first aim was looking at our sightings data. So most of these would be taken, of course, from Slashfin. It would be our commercial vessels. We're looking out and seeing where are the stingrays, when are they occurring, and taking into the factor of the environmental parameters. So most of those can be seen on the screen on the vessel. So it's a perfect opportunity to combine your commercial side and your research side as well. So we'll identify depth, identify temperature, and see how this correlates with the sightings. The second aim was basically my step into this, okay? So it was utilizing photographs to identify each individual stingray. So we want to create a catalog of the individuals in the area, understand whether they are returning, new ones, how are they utilizing the area, are they staying here for longer periods of time? All of that can be accessed through those photographs. So that was our second aim for our specific project. In terms of the methods of research, so basically split up per aim. So over here on this side, our commercial shark cage diving operations was where we recorded the sightings of the stingray. Basically, did we see a stingray? Yes or no? It's pretty simple when it comes down to this. Myself and the rest of the guides, this is data we collect on a daily when it comes to our specific vessels heading out to the water. We did aim for quite a long period when it comes to looking at where they are distributed. So we went from 2014 all the way up to 2024. So we went through our historical data, what is already there on our computer, what has been done so for many years. Just shows the value of consistent data collection across our area. We can always revisit and see what else we can learn from this information. But basically including those environmental parameters and applying what we call a generalized additive model. So I will get into the nerdier side of things just to try explain it to you guys, but I won't go too into depth, okay? We'll just show you the pretty figures that come out afterwards. And then of course, spot identification. So looking at those patterns, by recognizing different individuals, you can identify their seasonality. So at what times of year are they coming up? And because we can recognize these individuals, we can also apply an open population model. So get an estimate of the number of individuals that we do have within our specific bay. So going into the study environment, I'm sure you guys are all very familiar with this, okay? So our study site was, of course, just over here in Kleinbaai, very well associated with our marine biodiversity. We boost our marine big five, and then we've got these extras, okay, like these beautiful stingrays to share as well. There were 2 study sites. So one thing about our history with our shark cage diving is that when it came to the original dive sites during the heyday of all of this, they were operating around the Dyer Island ecosystem, around Shark Alley, and that was to coincide with the great white shark presence within the water. Sure you guys know the good story. There was an ecosystem shift that happened in 2017. We had them in the bay just the other day, port and starboard, caused that initial shift from our white shark population. But of course now it is still long-standing. There are alternative threats that are causing reductions in our white sharks, so definitely something to keep an eye on. But in response, we moved to Jubarstam, an area that we've nicknamed the Shallows. Where we drop anchor is between 7 to 10 meters, so it's really not a deep dive site at all. So making our way over, majority of our sightings would be within that area, as that is the larger portion of our study as well. And as mentioned, all of that data collection was going to be done when it comes to our specific area on board our commercial vessels. And when it comes to our specific coastline as well, we are situated along the Atlantic side, but we have very big influence from Cape Agulhas. So there's a process of upwelling. Your bottom layers are brought in by those specific currents coming through. It resuspends all the nutrients, resuspends the phytoplankton. That's the base of your food web, and that's why we can support so much here within our local area as well. And then going into our environmental parameters. So as mentioned, earlier years, we were situated up at Shark Alley, and that yielded a deeper dive site. So it could be as deep as 20 meters in comparison to the shallower bay that we have in Jubarstam. But from that point, we did have most of our sightings within a Celsius degree occurrence of 10 to 22 degrees, okay? So you can see there is a small fraction that they are preferring it. Once it dips a little bit colder than that, they tend to go a little bit silent, okay? So they are what we call ectothermic. They don't regulate their own body temperature. So whatever the temperature of the environment around them, it's going to control their metabolism, it's going to control their activity. And once it heads a little bit higher from that as well, might cause a bit of a thermal shock for these individuals. When it comes to our specific depths as well, mainly between 5 to 12 meters. So you can already see, despite us operating in a shallower dive site, if we were just comparing those 2 sites over the same period, chances are we would have an increased likelihood within that shallow bay. That tends to be where they prefer to be found, really sticking towards those inshore coastal areas. All of our operations were, of course, completed during the daytime as per the shark cage diving permits. So around 7 a.m., those are the early mornings we all dread, then till 4 p.m. within the later afternoon. But this is where we get a little bit on the nerdier side. So this is just breaking down the specific sightings that we had within the bay. So you can see based on the colors, the red bars are for specifically Dyer Island. You'll notice they're only towards the front of the graph, as that was only during our earlier studies that we were operating within that area. As we go past 2017, that's where Jubarstam steps in. So immediately we can see an increase in those sightings. In terms of those sightings, that's not the number of stingrays, but every time you see a stingray, okay? So for Dyer Island, out of 414 trips, you can see it's quite a small fraction of those sightings, just 13 of our entire population. And when it comes to Jubarstam, quite a few more trips. And we had 1,351 sightings. So already you can see how they're interacting with the environment, really preferring to stay within that surf zone. Of course, the dreaded years, 2020 to 2021, we didn't have that many trips. So there was a decline in those sightings as a reduction of those boat trips. But again, Ubarstam 21 times higher in terms of your likelihood of seeing those short-tailed stingray sightings. Getting even more nerdier, so these are all the factors that we considered as predictors for the presence of our short-tailed stingrays. So we looked at sea surface temperature, the depth, the time, and then also the month that we were within, okay? So with all of these, they were significant factors, meaning we could rely on them as a chance of probability to be able to see these stingrays. The important value you're looking at in the massive numbers sitting at the top there, your p-value, anything less than 0.05 means it does have a significance when it comes to your statistics. So you can see they're all well below 0.05. So that does mean we can look at these and know within a certain range there is a higher probability of us sighting these short-tailed stingrays. So temperature, we would have an increase in sightings above 15 degrees Celsius before it levels off. You'll notice on each graph there's a thin line and then there's a shadow around it. So the shadow is where you can see it gets a little bit wider. There's a bit more uncertainty. The closer your shadow to your graph means the more certain that we're going to see them at that time. So the areas of shadow we can already see now. Once it gets a little bit below 15, that does widen up. We're not too sure whether we are going to be able to say with confidence they will be in that area. Then for depth, we already spoke about this, but they do have a peak response between 6 to 9 meters, which does heavily correlate with the anchor site at Ubarstam. And then from that point as well, an increase in sighting trends after 2017, so that can be twofold, due to the fact we moved to a shallower dive site and also the removal of those white sharks from the area as well. So for these great white sharks, they are known to feed on the short-tailed stingray. So one of the earlier necropsies, they did find one of the venomous barbs within the stomach during that. So a clear sign that they do directly feed on these individuals. So likely chances they also felt a little bit safer, a little bit braver. We started seeing an increase in that frequency. And then interestingly enough, they don't really have specific seasons that they enjoy. So there's a first little peak up in around March to July. Tends to be the in-between season. So it's not directly in summer, it's not directly in winter. We have a little bit of a secondary peak there in August to September. So that was quite interesting for us to see and also tells a lot for us in terms of how they're spending their time in the area, how they're utilizing that area. So going into the photo identification, so applying the second part, our second aim into this. Photo identification is one of the fastest growing bits of research when it does come to marine biology at the moment because it's very accessible. So what you're going to utilize is unique markings taken from each individual, and with those unique markings, they are like a fingerprint. So you can directly say we know which individual this is. Also allows for that chance of re-sightings as well. It's great to be able to operate from the vessel when you've got a boat full of clients. Taking photos is much easier than putting a tag in. And of course, a little bit less invasive and less expensive, which is a researcher's favorite words to hear. Just need a camera and a little bit of time and you'll be able to get your answers with regards to this as well. There has been a great application to multiple different marine species too. So for our great white sharks, able to use the trailing edge, which is that curved edge at the back of their fin. Also the same for manta rays. They do have spots along what we call their ventral side, so the bottom side of the individual. We'll have the same with African penguins. They have little dots that are unique to them on their stomachs, turtles, whole different host of species. And we did find out that it is actually the same for our short-tailed stingrays as well. So when it comes to the spot identification, so for the individual that's in the middle there, that is the top side of the stingray. The spots are located just behind their spiracles. So the spiracles are the really large holes along the side of their head. Just allows them to expel water, control where they are within your water column, and improve their breathing. If they're sitting still, they can pump that water over their gills and allow them to remain nice and calm along the bottom. When it comes to those spot patterns, as you mentioned, they are different between those individuals, and there will be a cluster or constellation on the left side as well as the right side, and those two will differ from one another. So that's very helpful in terms of the fact if you just have one side, you are still able to get an ID, although maybe not to the same degree of strength as when you do have those two perfect ones along the top, but basically allows us to get those observations of each unique individual. So when it comes to the individual presence patterns, so we identified 11 short-tailed stingrays within our bay over a 10-year period. So actually, not that many, hey? So they will have differences in terms of how often we are seeing them. So we call these an abacus plot. So the first one that we have, number A, that is across the years. So you can see if you go down the list, each little row is going to be relevant to each stingray. Some you'll just see one dot. That means we only saw them once. It was just one single sighting. We never saw them again. But for examples of short-tailed stingray 2 and 3, they are consistent dots. That means we saw them quite a few times over consistent years, one after the other as well. We did take it a step further and break it down per month too. So that's where we were able to get those peaks of seeing them within those in-between seasons. So again, having it around March or so and then heading up to August and September again, they tend to be sticking within those specific months as well. So in terms of their consistency, each individual seems to be having its own way of characterizing the bay and interacting with the environment. So this is where it gets a little bit nerdy. So for the open population model, the reason it has to be an open population model is because it's not a cage. So we do have individuals that are moving out, either passing away or migrating out of the area. And we will also have recruitment. That can either be through birth or individuals moving within the region. So there will be a host of different factors that are considered to create your open population. Because of our approximate sightings and the relevance and how long we did this study for, it was estimated that about 3/4 of the population here within Kleinbaai were confirmed and were sighted around that shark cage diving vessel. Low recruitment into the population. Basically, we didn't have too many new individuals rocking up. So again, over 10 years, just 11 individuals that we were able to confirm and re-sight. Chances of us missing one out within our specific dataset size were fairly low. So chances are we're really not missing too many of these individuals. And then again, few new individuals coming through, a little bit of recruitment. So we're quite confident in the estimation of our population size. So coming into our locals, I get to introduce you to some of those that we see around our boat, that we have in our bay. This one here is our long-term resident. You can see they have very unique names, short-tailed stingray 2. So any ideas, please let me know, guys. So first sighted in 2014. That is, of course, the first year that we started our specific study. So she's been with us from the very beginning. So she's kind of my emotional support stingray. When I see her come through on the photos, it's of course fantastic to know she is still with us. You can see there in the bottom photo, she did go through a bit of a modification, and that is as a result of a shark bite. So taking out the little front of their face there, but very, very happy news. We did see her just yesterday. Our shark guide, Susie, she did get a video. We were able to zoom in on those identifying spots along the top of their head. And that did mean from that phase, we can confirm that she has been here within our bay for over 12 years. Okay, so she is one of ours that are sticking around for the long run. Another recent sighting that we've had is also short-tailed stingray number 8. So another shark bite. So out of our total population of recorded individuals, we do have 3 confirmed shark bites. As mentioned, for the great white sharks, they were known to feed on these individuals. But we do have some other species, like the broad-nosed seven-gill, may make an opportunistic turn at them. And then also our ragged-tooth sharks, occasionally sighted around the area. So just different species to take into factor. Of course, we weren't there to see exactly what happened, but just based on the circumference and the size and the severity of it, I think a shark bite is quite a good suggestion. But when it comes to these individuals, you can see that bite that was very, very fresh in that circular photo is very, very raw, very, very rough, quite gnarly to see around the boat. But we did have our resighting just a few days ago as well, perfectly healed, okay? So they have very fast tissue regeneration, and when it comes to their skin, they're made of dermal denticles. They look like mini shark teeth under a microscope, do lap over one another, creates, of course, a hydrodynamic surface, but also means they do have quite a tough and rough exterior. When we see them around the cage, around the bait lines, they do still have attitude. So it's really cool to be able to see that these bites are not necessarily affecting the way that they're interacting around. It's not changing the way that they're feeding, and seeing them recovered and still here after such a long time after that initial bite does mean they do have a good chance of survival, even in a higher case of predation as well. So when it comes to what we have learned, so it is multifaceted. So here within Kleinbaai, we do have an aggregation of short-tailed stingrays with many individuals that are staying here for the long run. They really are sticking around pretty much like most of us here. And when it comes to the unique spots, we are able to identify them. We can look at these spots and we know which individual it is. So it is a confirmed new research technique for these short-tailed stingrays, okay? This is not something that had been done before. And with all these individuals that we did identify, they were all girls, okay? So quite reflective of our guiding team as well. It's very girl strong out there in the bay. So just like sharks, they do have reproductive organs called claspers. So they will sit just behind the disc underneath the tail. There will be two along either side. But for the females, it's just an opening called the cloaca. So they'll be lacking those reproductive organs. So through underwater footage captured by our videographers on board and any well-angled photos, we were able to confirm that our sightings were female within the region as well. So going a little bit deeper into our conclusions. So very proud to say that this is the longest observation of short-tailed stingrays, not only on a national level, but also internationally. Most of what we know previously about these short-tailed stingrays was acquired from other countries. New Zealand and Australia have done a fantastic job on studying their short-tailed stingrays. So we decided to pick up the slack a little bit. We do see that they are resident to those inshore areas, really enjoying that shallow environment, as we see very clearly within our specific area of our dive site. And with most stingrays accounted for, we can see that they do have a large trip effort. Again, that large effort does mean we've most likely identified majority of those individuals within the bay. Because of the time of year that we are seeing these individuals, it is unlikely that when they aggregate here within our area that it is for the purpose of mating. So likely just a little pit stop, but that's where we could get even further. We can delve into this a little bit more just to try understand how are they utilizing it and where are they going when they're not with us. So in terms of our future considerations, tagging, we can get some of those into them, okay? Of course, as mentioned, with our photo identification, it's fantastic in terms of its accessibility. On board our commercial vessels, we can utilize every opportunity and those hours spent on the water to ID them. But if we really want to know what's happening when we're not able to grab those photographs, there's two different alternatives for us, and they both will show us different things. When it comes to their migrations, that's where a PSAT satellite tag would be effective. So one that would end up releasing. But with those, they do provide a bit more of a consistent feed when it comes to tracking these individuals. So their migrations along our coastline. One of the more affordable options is an acoustic tag. So we can have these just put in underneath the barbs along the bottom, a little bit closer towards the disc. It's still something we're trying to figure out. Flat sharks are not the easiest thing to get a tag in. There's not really much to grip in and onto, so still something that is developing, but I know they are trying this out in Cape Town, so hopefully once they get it right, they can teach us and we can easily implement it. But site fidelity, how long they stay in the area and how do they utilize the area. For our acoustic tags, just behind Dyer Island, we do have 3 acoustic receivers. These do belong to the acoustic tracking array platform. So those run the entire length of the South African coastline. There's over 250 of those receivers. So from False Bay all the way up to the Mozambican border, anytime any tagged individual swims past, that receiver will then download that information. So it'll have the tag number so we can identify the individual, but on top of that, the date, and of course, anytime it swims past. So we have multiple passes. We can say, okay, within these months, we know they're spending time with us, but as they make their way up the coastline, this is how far they go, and this is the information we can gather from it. This is one of their breeding aggregation sites, so a lot of information that can be taken from this. Another great thing when it comes to photo identification, so going back into that as a research technique, we can utilize citizen science as well as social media. So the power of people, that is where you get your regular population to contribute towards your science. Of course, as all we need is a photograph, anyone out diving, snorkeling, I'm sure you guys know it's Kleinbaai. There's quite a few individuals there. The sign says Perry. There's multiple Perrys there, okay? So most people will take a photo not knowing that it's Perry's cousin, but we were able to see because they do have different spots and dots across the top of their head. So just by utilizing that across the coastline, we can also see if we have any resightings of those that stay in our bay, we understand where they're heading towards, or if it's new individuals, they like to stick to their own little places. And then of course, this is just the start. This is our first decade of looking into it, but we can continue doing this, and we have done so on our boats. That's how we were able to recognize short-tailed stingray number 2 and 8, long-term residents here within our bay. So this is something that we'll be implementing onto our specific boats for both our biologists and guides, as well as our interns, to keep a consistent record of, and of course, maybe see if we do have any new individuals in the area. Guys, I do want to say a massive thank you for listening to the work that we've done on our local species. I hope you have a new favorite marine animal to add to your list as well. Of course, we did have one of the first looks into it by one of our previous Marine Dynamics Academy interns, Kirsten. She had a first look into this, and of course, with regards to Ralph and Marine Dynamics, our Dyer Island Conservation Trust, being able to get all this onto it and of course supporting us through the way as well. So thank you very much for listening, guys. Do I get merch?
Yeah, but you just get the backpack.
To get from the shop. Thank you, babes.
Thank you so much, Amy. It's incredible that she gave up the tropical warm waters, Cavaladas, white beaches, to come live in Kleinbaai with milkwood trees, cold beer, and sometimes cold water. So
Yeah, the second option is the reason I'm here.
That's great. Thank you so much, Amy. Any questions? Yes. Just wait for you to get the microphone there. Right.
Have you any record of number 2 and number 8 actually leaving the bay and where they went?
You can get your steps in now.
Yeah.
So because we utilize just photo identification, we only have the confirmed sightings when they are around our specific vessel. I can head towards that abacus plot that we did have, so we'll be able to identify the gaps in when we had those sightings. So you'll be able to see across the years in number 2, around that 2020-21 mark. Don't account for that, that's the COVID sightings. But there was a little bit of a break around that mid-2017 and 2018. Again, for short-tailed stingray number 8, those sightings were a little bit more sporadic. So we spotted her for the first time in 2018. Then she was a little bit of a mystery, and now she's back for a longer period of time. You can see after that stage from 2020 up until 2024, and of course now confirmed this year, she's here within our bay. So in order to get the information on where they're going after, that would be the implementation of either the tags or utilizing photos that people may have within the surrounding area. But yeah, those are the expensive options. So any funds, welcome, guys.
Oh, thank you so much for putting up your hand. So, I thought you were going to give me the check now.
Sorry.
Yes, very interesting. Thank you very much.
Of course.
Were those popular ones, number 2 and 8 and so forth, did you always find them at the same spots? You say you focused on Dam and later on, or earlier Shark
Yes.
and then later on. Were they mostly spotted in the Dam area then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have a little. This plot is doing me very well today. So, of course, from 2017 is when we made our way over towards Dam. So looking at Stingray 2, there were some sightings around Shark Alley. So she didn't mind it a little bit deeper as well. But of course, consistently now, all of our records will be taken within the shallow areas of the bay. Short-tailed stingray number 8, from that individual, she's only been around Dam, as we've not had those trips out around Shark Alley where we've recorded any sightings of those individuals. So it seems that our second individual followed the trend towards those shallower waters. Could also be as a result of our boats being out in the water. But short-tailed stingray number 8, shallow all the way. She's a little bit scared of the deep water.
Okay, do we have, again, one more question, because we're not done yet.
That's a threat.
Someone totally ignorant. Where is some? Shark Alley, and what's the other one?
That was those two. The shallows is the same.
Oh, there we go.
Here we go. So if you imagine our bay, so there's Kleinbaai, just situated towards the top. That's Franskral Beach that runs across there. Pearly Beach will be over towards that side. So Dyer Island, there's an expanse of water between Dyer Island and Giza Rock that is known as Shark Alley. So that was where majority of the earlier shark cage diving operations were done from. And Jubashta, we have Elenkra Estuary, just a little bit further towards the side is where we've got that specific dive site. So very shallow and still very local. In terms of heading out on the boat, it only takes us 15 minutes to reach this dive site, and that's pretty much parallel to the coastline. So all very local within our ecosystem here.
You are, of course, welcome to the Marine Beach 5, and we'll go show you.
Yeah, come see.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
Amy.
I
Thank
get.
you. Okay, so before we end up the evening, I just quickly wanted to introduce you to somebody you've probably seen around. He's been one of our volunteers for the past 11 years since apps started. Wappa.
Cheers.
And, so he drives through from our corners every single week. He's always there for us. If there's a penguin that needs to be picked up, collected, he's there. Or even sometimes it would be another seabird. And he was also he was basically standing guard at Buffalo when he was at on-roast beach. And he was there during the day and the night, so we really appreciate her for the amount of your time and your dedication to animals. And Gerrit said, but there are so many people asking him how can they also become one of these super permanent volunteers. So we just quickly want to introduce Gerrit, and he's just going to tell us more, because we really do need more people.
Yeah, just use
become
those,
so
okay.
involved. And if you just be a phone call away, we can say please to help. Oh, Gerrit was also the person that I had to phone one Sunday evening to say that there's a Dassie stuck in a restaurant drain. Please go and help, and he did go. And then
Have a first
he
one.
virtually said no, the Dassie wasn't stuck. The Dassie actually could get out, but it was just like screaming and going ballistic. But Gerrit was my go-to guy in Hermanus. 8 o'clock on a Sunday, there's a Dassie. What do? Phone Gerrit. So here's Gerrit.
Do I need this or
That one.
this
Yes.
one? Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, whilst she's
2 seconds.
sorting out the technical problem here, I came down to Hermanus after quite a traumatic event in my life, after having a heart attack, a triple bypass, a pacemaker and a defibrillator installed. And why I'm mentioning this is when I joined APPS, it really helped me get through a very difficult time in my life. And tonight I want to share a bit of that with you guys. Also because when we were here at the last Marine evening, I had a chat to some people and they said to me, well, what do you do as a volunteer? And I said, come over to APPS the next day and have a look and we'll tell you all about it. And I must say, Annelie, she's sitting in the back there. She's there now. She's had her first bite from a penguin. So she's part of the family and she's assisting us now with data capturing and all sorts of other things. So, you know, we'd like the people to join us because it's not only things that we do there, but it could help the population of the African penguins and the seabirds that we have around. Are you there? Okay, great. We're live again. Tonight I want to talk to you, they asked me to talk about the last 10, 11 years, but I need a lot more time than 10 minutes to talk about that. So I'm going to just briefly run through the various things that you can get involved in. And we'd like you guys to be our eyes and our ears in the quiet season, and then in the busy season come and help with one of the things that you believe you can come and help with. Without you guys out there walking on the beaches and looking at whatever you look at and enjoying, look out for those birds that are injured, look out for the seabirds that needs attention, and contact the APPS rescue line. And that way you can assist us without even getting involved at the center itself. What I'm showing you here is one of the things that you can get involved in is the preparation of the feeding. We feed twice a day, 8 o'clock in the morning and 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And during very busy times, like in December 2023, we had over 200 babies that we had to feed, plus the regulars that we had, the adults. So a feed would take between 3 to 4 hours twice a day. And that was quite a lot of time that we had to put in, and we need all the help we can get there. As you can see there, we need normally have 3 people around a table. The one is the person that feeds the bird, the other one holds the bird, and we normally have a third person there, which is the scribe. So if you're scared of the birds, you don't want to touch them, you can become a scribe and help us to record all the data. From the day the bird arrives there till the day it leaves, everything is recorded and gets fed into a computer, and we have that all the time. Okay, that's one of the babies we're feeding there as well. Right, so there's a bunch of babies there. And as you can see, they've got a little band around the arm with a number, and that's how we identify them, and that's how we record all the data. And as I said, from the day they arrive till the day they leave, everything gets checked. Their weight, the medication, how much they eat, are they gaining weight, are they losing weight, all those type of things are recorded. And we know everything about that bird from that day it comes in till it leaves again. And some of the birds they would put a chip into when they release them. And that way, if we get the bird back for some other reason, we can scan it and see whether that bird is from our center or from another center. We had one the other day that came back because it didn't like it out there, and after 10 days it came back to us again, and we had to feed it again. Okay, the other thing that happens as well, as I say in the day-to-day thing, is after the feeding, as you can see there, they're in an enclosure. As we feed them, we put them into another enclosure, and then that enclosure has to be cleaned up. Not a very nice job, but it has to be done. So every time after feeding, everything gets cleaned, and they get clean towels and everything like that. So if you don't want to get involved in feeding, donate all your old towels, newspapers, things like that. Talk to your friends, family, and we will come and collect it even from you if necessary. I will do it myself if I have to. I've got people in Hermanus collecting newspapers for me and towels and things like that, and I'll bring them through to the center when I collect them. So yes, we do even need that if you don't want to get involved in the day-to-day. Then as the birds get a bit bigger, you must remember they've never been in water before, the babies. So basically we don't train them to swim, but we put them in the swimming pool and sit there and watch them so that they okay. But nature kicks in and then they just start swimming. At first, when you put them in, it's actually quite funny. They splash around and it looks like they're going to drown, and then it kicks in and then off they go. And then after that, they're fine. They will swim by themselves. So we teach them to swim. Well, not really teach them, but we help them to swim in that little pool. And when they're of age, we will then move them across to the bigger area where they will then stay for a couple of days with the adults, and that's where they learn their position in the hierarchy before we release them. So because they juveniles, they're like teenagers, they think they can rule the world. So the adults will then sort them out and get them to understand where they fit into the hierarchy in the penguin world. Then the release of these penguins, it's sometimes a little bit sad because they like your kids. You take them out there and you're going to put them in the wild world. Normally we would take them to the island, and the reason for that is they've never been in the sea before. And their GPS hasn't worked out where exactly they are. So they need to find out where they are, and by taking them to the island, putting them amongst the other penguins there, they will work out themselves what to do and follow the others. On that specific day, we couldn't get close enough to the island because of the weather and the sea, and we just dropped them off and kept an eye on them until they eventually got to the island and they were okay. That was one of the birds that I had to rescue, so I also have quite a big area where I go and rescue penguins and seabirds, and as Christine mentioned, sometimes dussies as well. And that was not so long ago. I think it's about December time frame. It was in Onrus, got a call. Kolani phoned me and said, there's a penguin, can you go and fetch it? I went and collected it. And so that's one of the things you can also get involved in. But obviously you need a bit of training and know how to work with these birds, because they can really bite you, and if you're not too careful. And that's the one that I rescued. You can just fall in love with that face. This was another rescue I did. This is a cormorant. Had a piece of mask, you know, the rubber of the mask that you put on your face, they had around its neck. It was quite a challenge to catch it because it was fairly healthy and it was difficult to catch it, but eventually I did, and we managed to get that piece of plastic off, brought it through to the sanctuary, and we released it shortly after that. So this is something that happened during the December time frame. I was helping out there on the day, I think it was a public holiday and so on, and there was about 35 kids from an Afrikaans school, and the ladies, they were quite busy serving tea, and this was at the 3 o'clock feeding session. So they came and asked me if I can help and do the talk on what we do there, specifically to the kids in Afrikaans. Ek is heeltemal tweetalig, so ek kan dit in albei tale doen as dit nodig is. And there were some adults there as well that came for the feeding. So it was nice to do it in both languages, but specifically for the little ones. So there's an education role as well that people can get involved in. And if they don't want to feed or touch the penguins, education is very important in taking this message out to the kids and then to the adults and their parents and so on. So that's another thing that you can also get involved in. This was some time ago, and believe it or not, that's me in the suit. That suit was bad news, let me tell you. It was so hot in that suit, you could not breathe. This was we used to have the African Penguin Fun Run in December. And that was that day that people that can recognize Brenda there way back, I assisted them with setting off the athletes, receiving them back, handing out the prizes and that sort of thing. But yeah, I don't know how I get roped into all these things. That was at the Well Festival, again with the suit. What we did there as well is I stood with that sign, and everybody that wanted a photograph with their kids in the sign, we asked them to make a donation in a holder that we had there, and we collected quite a lot of money that day. So don't be shy to ask for donations if you help us at the Well Coast Festival. Again, that was at the Well Coast Festival as well. It was the stand we had there, and you can get involved in that and assisting there, talking to the public and telling them about not only what we do at APS, but marine dynamics, Dyer Island Conservation Trust, and all of those type of things, as long as you know what's happening. And that's one of the nice things that I did during this difficult time, is I didn't only learn about the African penguins and seabirds, I got involved in other things as well. So I know a fair amount about sharks, and even the presentation that Amy did tonight, I've learned a lot. Now I can also talk about it. And I love to talk to people, specifically kids. I've done some schools, I've done some retirement villages and things like that as well. So anybody that wants to make use of me, you're welcome to just get hold of Christine or give me a buzz and I'll come and do it. The new suit, lovely. You can breathe in it. This was at the Two Oceans Aquarium in Cape Town. They gave us a stand there to present the various things that we do. Again, it was a different environment. They have their own penguins there, they have their own people, but they afforded us the time to go and also present there. And that's me in a new suit, talking to the kids. So, you know, it's fun. I enjoy it. I love it. So this is where I'm going to end off. I'm going to have a show of hands. How many people here actually have the APS rescue line number in their phone? It's about 5, 6 people, yeah, out of this whole room. I want you all to put this number in your phone, please. This is one of the ways you can help us. Become our ears and our eyes out there. Not only for the African penguins, but also now it's turtle season. There's a lot of little turtles that are washed out. So you walk along the coast, you see these little turtles. I know they had a presentation here a few weeks ago about turtle rescue. Please don't put the turtles back in the water. Contact us and we will come and help you, or we will make a plan with the rescue line. There's also a turtle rescue line that's available. So that's all I'm going to say tonight. If you have